Now, there is no doubt about it that Snow White is by far the worst production by the Walt Disney Company for multiple factors. We know that a lot of it had to do with Rachel Zegler.
The whispers began backstage at Disney, but no one expected the fairy tale to shatter so publicly, or that the evil queen would end up more sympathetic than Snow White herself. Hollywood's most magical kingdom was about to witness its darkest behind-the-scenes drama in decades.
Just looking at it as a movie in and of itself. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support.
If you're tired of sanitized Hollywood narratives that hide the real story, tap subscribe now. The next revelation about Disney's $300 million catastrophe drops tomorrow, and the aftermath is still sending shockwaves through every major studio. When the Snow White adaptation was first announced, Disney executives projected confidence. This would be another jewel in their crown of live-action remakes, a guaranteed box office success built on nostalgia, star power, and cutting-edge visual effects. But something went terribly wrong. By mid-run, theaters were mysteriously rushing to pull the film.
We know at the same exact time, putting DEI all aside, putting Rachel Zegler all aside, this was just a terrible movie across the board when it came to the writing, the directing, the producing, even the cinematography. The CGI was just god-awful. We know that there's a lot of problems going into this movie.
And the worldwide box office froze at an anemic $194 million, just $85 million domestically, against a reported $300 million investment in production and marketing. Industry analysts scrambled for explanations. Was it franchise fatigue? Poor effects? But did you know that Snow White's per-theater average dropped faster than any Disney remake in history, plummeting 73% after opening weekend? The numbers suggested audiences weren't just indifferent. They were actively rejecting the film. As theater chains began quietly replacing Snow White screenings with more profitable alternatives, insiders started whispering about tension between the film's stars. But what happened on camera was merely the reflection of something far more fractured behind the scenes. The clash behind Disney's Snow White disaster wasn't just about creative differences. It represented two fundamentally opposing philosophies about how stars should approach beloved intellectual property.
Just looking at it as a movie in and of itself. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support.
In one corner stood Gal Gadot, the Wonder Woman actress known for her careful, market-conscious promotion style. In the other, Rachel Zegler, a rising star whose comments about the original 1937 film sent shockwaves through Disney's carefully constructed marketing plan. While promoting the film, Zegler described the original Snow White as problematic, criticizing the prince as stalking Snow White and suggesting the remake would eliminate the romance entirely. It's no longer 1937, she declared in interviews that went viral for all the wrong reasons. The rich crimson shade of the film's marketing materials couldn't compete with the red flags these comments raised among Disney's core family audience. Meanwhile, Gadot maintained meticulous professionalism, her voice taking on a slightly higher, more melodic quality when discussing her villainous role, a vocal performance as carefully crafted as her public persona. Did you know that, throughout dozens of interviews, Gadot never once criticized the source material, instead repeatedly calling it iconic and beloved? The contrast in approaches could not have been more stark. But behind their carefully constructed public appearances, tensions were rising faster than the evil queen's jealousy. If exposing the promotional missteps has you intrigued, hit subscribe now before we reveal what really happened when the cameras stopped rolling. What audiences never saw were the unprecedented production challenges plaguing Snow White from its earliest days. What started as a straightforward adaptation spiraled into 3 extensive rounds of reshoots that completely transformed the second and third acts of the film at enormous cost. Sources close to production described an atmosphere that grew increasingly fractured with each new script revision.
We know at the same exact time, putting DEI all aside, putting Rachel Zegler all aside, this was just a terrible movie across the board when it came to the writing, the directing, the producing, even the cinematography. The CGI was just god-awful. We know that there's a lot of problems going into this movie.
The hollow echo of empty sound stages during unscheduled down days became a common occurrence as producers scrambled to reconcile competing visions. One day, filming would proceed according to the original fairy tale framework. The next, scenes would be rewritten to accommodate a more contemporary perspective. The metallic tang of hastily constructed sets became a familiar sensory memory for crew members who found themselves rebuilding the same environments multiple times as creative visions clashed. Did you know that the third round of reshoots in early 2024 reportedly focused almost exclusively on reshaping the film's ending after test audiences rejected the original conclusion? Cast members were repeatedly called back to sets they thought they'd left behind months earlier, with scheduling nightmares creating cascading delays. What should have been a 12-month production stretched into nearly 2 years of starts and stops, with costs mounting with every new creative pivot. As the release date finally approached after multiple postponements, something unexpected happened. The facade of unity between the film's stars began showing visible cracks. For months after Snow White's theatrical disappointment, Gadot maintained dignified silence about the production troubles. But as the film began its rapid exit from theaters, something changed. In a carefully worded interview that sent shockwaves through Hollywood, the actress finally revealed glimpses of what transpired during the troubled production. Without ever mentioning Zegler by name, the hallmark of a seasoned professional, Gadot methodically dismantled the production experience. If you want to have a successful project, she began, you need competent and well-behaved co-stars supporting you. The deliberate pause before the word competent hung in the air like the apple before its fatal bite. Most damning was Gadot's assessment of political commentary during promotion. The greatest mistake any actor can make when promoting a film is getting very political. Nobody wants to see that. The statement landed with the precision of a poisoned dart aimed directly at her co-star's controversial promotional approach. Did you know that after Gadot's comments, social media engagement with archived interviews of Zegler criticizing the original Snow White increased by over 400%? The audience had received a permission slip to reassess what had previously been dismissed as routine promotional interviews. With each carefully chosen word, Gadot painted a picture of numerous setbacks due to incompetence from our co-stars, describing Snow White as the most difficult production in my entire career. The icy precision of her critique, delivered without raising her voice or breaking her composed demeanor, proved more devastating than any shouting match could have been. As Gadot's revelations reverberated through Hollywood, the impact reached far beyond one failed film. The aftermath of Snow White's collapse hit the film's stars with asymmetrical force. While Gadot's careful commentary actually enhanced her reputation for professionalism, Zegler faced an industry-wide reassessment. Reports emerged that previously discussed contracts between Zegler and major studios were being quietly shelved or outright canceled. The whispered conversations in executive suites across Hollywood centered not on acting ability but on promotional reliability. Studio executives, who had once courted controversy as publicity, now watched Disney absorb a nine-figure loss, partly attributed to audience rejection of messaging around a beloved property. The faint scent of anxiety permeated talent agencies as representatives scrambled to counsel their outspoken clients. Did you know that one major agency reportedly circulated an internal memo advising their talent to respect source material when promoting adaptations of beloved properties? Without naming names, the message was clear. The Snow White scenario was to be avoided at all costs. For studios already struggling with post-pandemic economics and shifting audience behaviors, the Snow White disaster represented something far more threatening than one underperforming film. It suggested that even the most carefully constructed franchise plans could crumble when audiences perceived disrespect toward cherished cultural touchstones. As Hollywood recalibrated its approach to vocal talent, a larger pattern emerged that would reshape how studios protected their increasingly fragile investments. Disney's response to the Snow White debacle reveals a company at a crossroads. Rather than defending the creative choices that led to the film's rejection, the studio's uncharacteristic silence speaks volumes. Behind closed doors, the post-mortem isn't just about one failed film. It's about fundamentally reassessing how the studio approaches its most valuable asset, its relationship with multi-generational audiences. The industry watches closely as Disney navigates the aftermath. Early indicators suggest a strategic pivot back toward more faithful adaptations that honor rather than deconstruct their source material. Upcoming production schedules show subtle but significant shifts, projects with more controversial revisions quietly moving further back in their release calendar. Did you know that market research after Snow White showed that 76% of parents who decided against taking their children cited concerns about the film's approach to the source material rather than the casting choices that dominated online discourse? The lesson wasn't about who starred in the film, but about honoring the emotional connection audiences have with these stories. The most revealing aspect of the Snow White controversy isn't what Disney has said, it's what they haven't. The studio's marketing materials for upcoming adaptations now prominently feature language emphasizing faithful reimagining and honoring the original spirit, subtle acknowledgments that the Gadot's carefully worded critique. The Snow White character should never be criticized by the actual cast when you are promoting a character so embedded in pop culture. May ultimately serve as the epitaph for an approach to adaptation that prioritized deconstruction over celebration. As the dust settles on Disney's most expensive live action remake failure, the industry has received its starkest reminder yet. When you're selling fairy tales, believing in their magic isn't just good promotion, it's good business.